Ryan Easterling for Illini Playbook here with Scott Burgess of Chicago Hoops. And action at the Chicago Elite Classic just concluded. What a thrilling finish in that last one between Whitney Young and John Bosco from California. Daniel Hamilton, buzzer beater. It seemed it was kind of a back-and-forth game, lots of lead changes. But, evening action in general really didn't disappoint. And I know one of the first teams that played in the evening was Simeon, and you had some guys on that team that really stood out to you. And some guys that, didn't get a whole lot of tick last year, but guys that now, because of graduation and such a talented senior class last year, have to step up and step into those roles. Tell me a little bit about some of those guys and anybody else in that session that stood out to you.
Yeah, the storyline for Simeon this season is going to be guys that are super talented and that we've seen a lot on the AAU circuit, but really didn't get a lot of run on the high school scene because of guys like Jabari Parker, Kendrick Nunn, and Jalen Tate over the last 2 or 3 years. But DJ Williams, Illinois commit, looked really good in this one. He had several sick moves where he had the crowd in the palm of his hand, where sick crossovers, drives in the lane where he's faking back behind the back passes. He was super impressive out there tonight. Played with a lot of confidence, and he's going to have to be a guy for them they're going to really look to be one of their main guys and a perimeter scorer for them. And I definitely think the Illinois commit can do that. The younger guys, the sophomores, I thought also played pretty well. Zach Norvell started at the point. He's probably more of a natural 2, but for this team and in this lineup that they started tonight, it really worked well out there. He could score as a point out there, get others involved, but at the same time, definitely score. Started off the game really good, shot a couple threes from the perimeter and really got it going early. Also, Ben Coupette, I thought, played nice out there. Got to the hoop, really good in transition as a finisher. And really this whole Simeon team overall, I thought, had a nice performance. Very well-balanced effort for the Wolverines. Talk about Memphis Hamilton. We got to see the Lawson brothers at Nike UIBL in Minnesota this spring. Really impressed with them there, and they've continued to improve. KJ Lawson for Memphis Hamilton, a Memphis commit in that 2015 class. He came out very assertive in this game, was looking to get it going offensively for his team, rebounded the ball well, can hit some perimeter shots, but is really good at, banging on the interior and getting hoops in that way. And then his brother, a 2016 recruit, one of the best 2016s in the country, Dedrick Lawson, kind of a skilled perimeter guy, a little bit like a Kevin Durant type. He looks way bigger than I remember as far as, height-wise and strength-wise than I saw him in the spring. He did like to hang out on the three-point arc a little too much. He was pulling them from just across the half-court line, which is probably not the best shot selection in the world. But he has a feathery touch from the outside, quick moves in the paint, and a soft touch around the basket. So 2016 prospect to watch out for, nationally, one of the top 5 players in the entire country in a 2016 class that is stellar nationally. And Ryan's going to discuss a trio of 2014s that are already stellar and have all made their commitments already.
Yeah, and as I mentioned when I led off, Daniel Hamilton, what a performance from him for Bosco. He really was the one that keyed that win for them. They got a good performance, too, from Vance Jackson, but it was really Daniel Hamilton. He's a guy, he's a little bit taller, but he handles the ball so well for a guy his size. That skill is so evident. And, we saw him with a guy in his face step back and hit that game-winning shot to seal it for him. It's a pressure situation, and great players rise up in those types of situations. And on the other side of that, it was a tough loss for Jalil Okafor because he played an amazing game. He was double-teamed almost the entire game, and just time and time again, he would split the defenders, spin around one. And, he started off the game by spinning off of one defender and then going and posterizing another guy with a big dunk. It was things like that the whole time. And Okafor, he's dominant. Teams struggled to contain him. And obviously, Bosco found a way just to slow him down. And that's all they needed to do, really, to get the win, especially with the help of Hamilton. Hamilton showed some penetration skill. He was able to rise up and hit shots from the outside, had a few threes, but most of his damage was done in the mid-range and getting to the hoop. Found ways to get to the free throw line, which is always great. And getting back to Okafor, he did his thing too. There were times where he actually led the fast break, which a guy that's 6'11", about 260 pounds, leading a fast break, that's crazy. But, Okafor being such a skilled guy and being that number 1 player in the country, he was able to do it. And then in the game before that, a guy that left a little bit of a sour taste in the Illinois fans' mouth, but I'm going to tell you what, Cliff Alexander had an amazing performance. all controversy aside with the decision, Cliff Alexander had a monster game, 22 points, 20 rebounds, 5 blocks. And they weren't just tip blocks. These were very, very convincing blocks. And Cliff he commanded inside. And it was against a Patsy teammate. He was playing against Steven Zimmerman and Chase Jeter of Bishop Gorman, who are both 5-star front court guys. So it's not like Cliff Alexander was just going up against competition that would pad his stats. He put up those numbers against some of the best in the country. And, we've seen Cliff, but it seems like now he's starting to elevate and become more of a presence inside. And you can see that he's built himself up a little bit more. He's adding a little bit of weight, and you can tell that he's becoming more dominant and more forceful, and his aggression is really helping him out. I think that he's becoming more assertive and more aggressive. And he's also continually improving on the offensive end. We saw him a lot of times with some good putbacks, a very good offensive rebounder, and that helps him a lot. And, of course, as usual, he got some dunks. But the crazy thing was he was able to combine that with his rebounding, and there were 2 or 3 times where he got one-handed tip slams on balls that were above the rim, and he plays at a level above the rim. Those were 3 of the guys that stood out. Obviously, Miles Reynolds had a great game. Probably took some shots he shouldn't have, but, he's a guy who – he just looks to score. He looks to score, and he got a lot of points out in transition. Credit him for really busting his tail and getting out in transition and getting to the basket and beating Bosco down the floor. That was a lot of the reason that or they were able in the first half to come back and then take the lead in the second half. And down the end, it was just tough for them to close. Bosco just had the resolve in the end to get it done. And of course, too, we saw a lot of young guys. There's a lot of promise in some of these Chicago teams. Simeon being one of them. There were a lot of guys there, too. I mean, you talk about Ben Coupet. You can throw in Skylar Nash from Whitney Young was getting some minutes, and he's a younger guy, too. They're guys that may not be affecting the game quite yet, but they're guys who are getting that time, getting that experience. And then when they're in a situation similar to Zach Norvell and DJ Williams and those guys that are now having to step in after the great players on their team have left, it's their turn to step up and become those great players. But as you can see, things have wrapped up here at the Chicago Elite Classic. Great slate of games, 7 games. I think Chicago teams won a majority of them, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of talent on the floor and all in one place, and what better city than Chicago? So as far as the Chicago Elite Classic goes, for Scott Burgess, I'm Ryan Easterling signing out.